get out of here. Yeah, we're starting on chapter 3, how we think about the social world. We have two different types of social thinking. One of them is automatic thinking, and of course that has to do with, Emery and I have been talking politics here, and a lot of that's automatic thinking. You know, if you watch, I watch CNN a lot, so I see, they have a lot of Republican pundits on. And it's interesting to see them, they just start shaking their head before anybody says anything. It's really kind of interesting. And that's automatic thinking. Automatic thinking is quick, there's no conscious deliberation of thoughts, perceptions, or assumptions. It's just automatic. And we do that all the time. Who was I talking to the other day? We were, as you walk down the hallway, or if you're in Walmart and you see somebody, you make judgments about that select individual. And you may not be thinking, I need to specifically focus on this individual, like the kid with the gun. You know, it was just an automatic thinking. I saw him, I saw the look on his face, I saw the fact that he had a weapon under his coat, and it was automatic thinking. And at that point, I passed him, and at that point I needed to decide what I was going to do next. And so what I decided to do was turn around and go back and make sure that he wasn't going to harm anybody. And of course he didn't, so everybody was happy. Automatic thinking, yes sir.
Is that linked to our survival instincts?
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of it, sure. If you look at somebody and they're an attractive person, automatic thinking tells you, you know, it's just automatic. You don't. It's not like you're saying today I'm going to look at people at the opposite sex, or I look at somebody that's attractive and I'm going to find them attractive. You don't do that. It's just automatic. It just happens. Everything just happens. Automatic thinking. No conscious thought. It's just happens.
Almost like animalistic.
Yeah, well, it's from the brainstem instead of the cerebrum. Yeah, so you could say it was animalistic if you like. Controlled thinking is effortful and deliberate, thinking about self and the environment, carefully selecting the right course of action. Of course, that's controlled thinking. So when you had to decide whether you're going to come to class, you had to decide what you're going to do on the top of the hill. Since you guys were both swirling around, or your cars were kicking up, you had to decide what you were going to do. That was all controlled thinking. That was all deliberate. It had to do with the driving conditions. If you had been on that road and the conditions were dry, you would have used automatic thinking with your driving. And this is what happens with drivers. They get into they get hypnotized by the road, and everything's automatic. I've driven home and I couldn't remember passing this place or this place because I was just driving. The other day I was thinking about something else. You shouldn't do that, but I was thinking about something else, and I kind of woke up and I realized, oh, you know, I'm just driving right down. I'm driving where I should be driving. It was automatic. My driving was automatic, but I wasn't even thinking about it. Anyway.
Would it be like your short-term memory, or part of your short-term?
Well, hopefully it's short-term memory.
Or like you just kind of zone out when you're driving, because.
But you still stay in the right lane. And,
yeah.
And if somebody if a red light flashes in front of you, you start acknowledging what's going on. Sure.
Yeah, because I was reading an article when we were going to Farmington on Saturday, and my husband drove over the mountain, and when we got to like close to Shiprock, he's like, "Did we drive over the mountain?" And I'm like, "You were driving. What are you talking about?" Like,
I hope we did.
And I was reading my book the whole time, and I'm like, or my little article thing, and I was just like, "You weren't paying attention."
I don't know, did we?
Yeah. So, what is that part of? Is it just like?
That's automatic.
Automatic thinking.
Yeah, he was thinking about something else, and he was just everything was automatic as far as the car was concerned. And we do this all the time. If you see a red light flash in front of you, like the car slowed down in front of you, you hit the brake without thinking, I need to hit the brake. Or you probably started to hit the brake, and then you realized if I hit the brake, then then you had control thinking, if I hit the brake, I'm going to be sliding off into the ditch. That's probably what happened. But it's automatic. It's automatic that all of a sudden you start paying attention. People, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just like,
You know, there's something interesting when you're talking about that. When I was in Iraq, that automatic thinking was gone. I was in the moment,
Right,
24/7, wherever we were at. I had to observe everybody, everything.
exactly.
And I wonder if that's why a lot of veterans get burned out
Yeah.
when they come back.
Oh, yeah,
They're not on, and then they come back, they call it that battle minefield,
exactly.
and they can't relax. And they're just
Right.
observing everything. Their brains are not getting the time to relax, so they're stressed out.
Right. Yeah, you guys are driving down the road and you see an old tire beside the road and you think IED, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but of course we didn't have that problem in Vietnam. For one thing, we didn't have that many roads. And I was in a helicopter almost the whole time, which was different. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, when I hear a helicopter, all I have to do, you can feel a helicopter before you can hear it. You know, you feel it right here in your chest. You know, those rotors going around. Same thing happens to me. And I didn't realize it until, you know, it hit the first time. The first helicopter. Luckily, there's hardly any helicopters around. But back in Iowa, damn it, there's a National Guard base just north of us, and they fly over us all the time. And Sikorsky's, I don't know what the hell they're doing in Sikorsky's. You know, the two propeller helicopters, the two rotor helicopters. Anyway, yeah, there's a feeling for you. But what I flew in were Hueys, so you guys, I think they took them out of the.
And we have Black Hawk.
You guys,
They're starting to phase out.
your rotors are a lot quieter than ours were. Ours were really loud. So I'm having a heart attack, right? So not right now, of course. But so I'm having a heart attack, and they had to life flight me to Great Falls. I was in Havre, Montana, and they had to life flight me to Great Falls. It's about 150 miles. So they threw me in a helicopter, and they flew me down there. Well, the whole time, the guy says, your blood pressure's high. Your blood pressure's high. It's higher than it was when you were in the hospital. Are you afraid of flying? It wasn't a fear of flying. Well, there were two problems. One, they had me in this really small helicopter, and I've got really big feet, and so they stuck me underneath the control panel, and my feet stuck up, and I had to turn them over to the side. That was one of the reasons. But the other reason is because I was in a damn helicopter. Anyway, I survived. Everybody survived. People will often react correctly despite not consciously choosing to react in that manner. Schemas are mental templates used to make decisions. If you're ever in Kmart or you go to Target, then you think, well, this is the way you're supposed to act in this kind of an environment. And then you go to Walmart and all bets are off. All of a sudden your schema for the way you're supposed to act and the way that other people are going to act is completely different. For one thing, the aisles in Walmart are much narrower, and you can barely get two carts up and down. Okay, that's one of the problems.
well, depending on which Walmart.
What time of the month?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, don't go on Saturday or Sunday at the beginning
Of
of
course,
the month.
yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. People will aim their carts at you at Walmart. That happens to me a lot. I don't know, maybe I'm just an ugly old man, but
Thursdays are always a good day though.
Or
I'll have to remember that. But I have to teach on
in
Thursday.
Gallup, after midnight's really good too.
After midnight.
I used to go shopping. I'm not lying.
I know.
I
It's
used
just
to
funny because
go,
you gotta wait till midnight.
Walmart.
I used to go to Walmart in Gallup when I lived over there. I used to go there like 2 o'clock in the morning, do my shopping. It was like just a little bit, a few people in there shopping.
I'm not driving to Gallup. at midnight and then getting home at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not gonna do that. Anyway,
early in the
schemas.
morning.
So we all have schemas. But your schema for Walmart is completely different. You have to go there at midnight in order on on a
like-
Tuesday night. in
Or
order-
like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, that's a good
Pretty
time.
Yeah, because we were on an archery trip to Crown Point, and we went to Gallup real quick to stop at Walmart to get khakis, and there was like hardly nobody. Everything was full and like
Would have
stopped.
been perfect. I need to just get up earlier in the morning, and 4 o'clock in the morning so I can get down to Walmart by 6. Okay, now I've got a plan.
Yeah.
But if you go to Target or you go to Kmart, you don't have to worry about this stuff. For one thing, the aisles are a lot wider. They've got the same stuff, and it's probably a little bit more expensive, but the schema is completely different. Where was I? Oh, I went to Bosch's the other day, and I kept going. I don't like to get in people's way. That's my problem. I don't like to be in people's way. So I was walking up and down the aisle. I was looking for cake mix. I couldn't find it. Cake mix, and I told you about my cake. I gave that cake to Marius for his boys.
Did he eat it?
He probably ate it on the way out.
Did you take it home?
He did. He took it home, but I gave it to him for his boys. But I was looking for cake mix, and I was walking up and down Bosch's, and people kept stopping in the middle of the aisle, stopping in the middle, so that you couldn't get around them on the right, couldn't get around them on the left. It was almost like they were trying to block me.
You get that feeling too?
But I'm not that paranoid. So I just turned around, went around. But here I am. I'm walking all over Bosch's because
You're not paranoid though.
they are trying to. Yeah, is that right? They are picking on me. Okay.
I hate going to Bashes in Chinle.
It's bad.
I only go there if I have to.
Spam's on sale for $3.19. Emotional reactions, going with your gut feelings. One of the things that Donald Trump brags about is the fact that his gut feelings are smarter than anybody else's brains. It's a little confusing as to why he says that, but he claims that his gut feelings are that important, and the reality is all of our gut feelings are quite important. Expertise is unconscious understanding that guides our answers. And of course, the more you study a select area, the more expertise that you will gain. Implicit knowledge is knowledge and understanding that we are not aware of consciously. So, and we do have these, we do have information that we don't realize that we have. A lot of this information comes from information that we gain from looking at something, and then we just it doesn't register with us. But if something happens and we need that piece of information, it's in our brains. It's there. We know that it's there. We can do this we can hypnotize somebody and find out what this information is. You can't remember, you were driving behind somebody and you don't remember you didn't look at their license plate, or you don't think you looked at their license plate. They can hypnotize you, and you will remember their license plate if you looked at it. Because it's in there, it's in your brain. It just didn't come to your conscious. It's still in your unconscious. And this is known as implicit knowledge. Yes, sir.
I was wanting to ask it, as this relates to research, how do you guard against that in your research to keep that from skewing your data? And
You can't. There's nothing you can do about it.
this is going to be there.
It's going to be there. Yeah. And sometimes people know. Individuals that. How can I say this? I'm sure you came across this when you were over in Iraq. The fact that sometimes you would, you're mostly, you weren't doing any automatic thinking. But of course you were anyway. You had to. I mean, you can't acknowledge everything that's taking place. But sometimes maybe you were, you saw movement over here. Yeah, but you were supposed to be focused over here, but you saw movement over here. And you saw it out of the corner of your eye, but you had to keep your eye on this thing, and then all of a sudden something happened to your right. You know exactly where that movement came from. You know exactly, and potentially you even were able to identify whether it was a donkey or a person or something, or just the wind blowing. But you saw that, but you didn't acknowledge it because you were focused here, and then something happened over here, and you knew exactly where it was. This is implicit knowledge. You're getting information from with your eyes. You're hearing what's going on, but you're not acknowledging it. But if something happens and you needed to understand, you needed to acknowledge it, that it's still in there somewhere. That's implicit knowledge.
Is it just your brain trying to efficiently
Right, yeah, we organize things.
organize all that data that's coming in
Exactly,
from all your senses?
exactly. And that's what burns people out, is the fact that they're taking in all this information. You're out in a dangerous situation, and you're focused here, but you're also acknowledging here. And all of this peripheral information is implicit knowledge that you can react to, that you potentially can react to. Hopefully you can. And if you remember the first time you were in a situation like that, you had tunnel vision. All you saw was here, and you didn't see any of this. But the longer that you were, or the more frequently that this happened to you, the more implicit knowledge that you were gaining.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, like Audie Murphy, the first time he was in combat, he got spooked and he ran the first time he was in combat. But after that, of course, he did what
I've just adjusted my body, my behavior, to be able to more easily collect data. Almost like, even now, like I won't sit with my back to the door.
Right.
You know, like I have to.
I know.
So I can see how my brain, I'm trying to, I guess, compensate
Right.
for all that information. I'm trying to, it affects my behavior.
And I've told you the story of my brother. My brother's got tunnel vision. You know, his eyes are set back in his head, so he's got tunnel vision. Sees really well at night. So when he was in Vietnam, they used him as a night fighter. They'd send him out on ambushes. And at first they sent him out with other guys, but I mean, everybody else was so stupid. No. Nobody could see like he could see. Eventually they just sent him out by himself. They'd send him out with a patrol, and then he would go off and they called it walking point, but the rest of the squad just sat there, and he went out and checked all the trails and whatnot. They didn't go with him. For one thing, they were making too much noise. The other thing is they couldn't see anything, and he could see really well in the dark. He was also a tunnel rat, which is god awful stuff. Anyway. Stupid. Automatic thinking, blind sight, perception that is not recorded consciously, and this is really what we're talking about. You have all this implicit knowledge, you have all this information coming in. It's not in your conscious mind, it's in your unconscious mind, but you can call it forth. And of course, blind sight is the same thing. Blind sight is the fact that you're seeing these things. Prosopagnosia. People who suffer brain damage and can't recognize faces still have increased heart rates when confronted with familiar faces, despite the fact that they can't see the faces. They are subconsciously acknowledging them. Intuition is recognizing someone you know in a younger face of the individual. I just had my 50th high school reunion. Really kind of interesting. All of those people all those old farts were there. It's really kind of bizarre because they were I hadn't seen them in 50 years. Some of them I recognized and some of them I didn't. Some people changed a lot and some people didn't change at all. I recognized the males easier than I recognized the females. That was a little strange for me. Some people got a lot bigger. And if they just gained weight, then it was easy for me to see who they were. But if they got taller, I had no clue who they were. Everybody recognized me. I don't know. I guess I haven't changed since I was a kid. Anyway, I think I look old. My wife thinks I look old. She tells me all the time. She told me last night. I called her on the phone. So intuition is recognizing younger faces in older faces. Subliminal is reacting to a stimulus that is below or our threshold of recognition. And of course, this is an argument that Sarah and I had when I first got here, was whether subliminal information is actual information. And of course, when she was at Northwestern, they said it wasn't subliminal. Now we know the subliminal messages don't work anymore. And of course, I was taught that it did work. And actually, it's used all the time in the military to tell you what to do and to stay straight and to do what you're supposed to do. Anyway, she said it didn't work, and I said it does. So if you ever have a conversation with Sarah, don't mention the word subliminal because she'll start yelling at you. Anybody recognize this guy? Intuition. We can
Looks
see
like John F. Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy. That's exactly who it is. John F. Kennedy. How
Fitzgerald.
about these two puppies?
No, the Clintons.
Yeah, there we go.
Is it really?
Yeah, Bill and Hillary.
Oh,
You see him now?
okay. Okay, yeah.
That's the University of Arkansas.
Yeah, University of Arkansas. There they are.
Bush.
Bush.
As you can
His
tell by his
eyebrows.
Yale hat.
His
Yeah.
Went to
eyebrows.
Yale.
George W. There we go. Whoops.
His dad got him into Yale.
How about this guy? Anybody recognize this guy? No Catholics in the room?
What's his name?
What's his name? No Catholics in the
I
room?
can't see his face though.
It's Pope Francis. There you go. Who just did something and I didn't read it. How about this guy? Come on.
The one that plays Pirates in the Caribbean. I forgot his name. I don't watch. What was his name?
Captain Jack Sparrow?
Yeah. God, what was his name?
Yeah.
Johnny
Johnny
Depp.
Depp, there you
Johnny
go.
Depp, okay, yeah. Schemas are organized structures of knowledge. We create our schemas from experience, containing causal relations. One thing causes another. A lot of military people are conservative because that it was their experience when they were in the military, was being conservative. It's about 70-30. About 30% of military people are liberal and about 70% are conservative. But it's a conservative organization. It's also a socialist organization. And nobody acknowledges that. It really is. You get paid by what rank you are, and no matter what you do and
How much you work?
and how much, yeah, whether you do the work or somebody else does the work, you still get the same amount of money that guy got. You get paid for longevity. So it's a purely socialist organization. It's very hierarchical. Sometimes you get the biggest dummies that are in charge. I don't know if you noticed that. I hope you didn't notice that. I did. It's formed from a theory about how the social world operates, our schemas. So we put these schemas together. I have a schema about going to the store. If I'm going to the store in Iowa, it's totally different than if I'm going to the store at Bosch's or in Walmart in Gallup. Completely different. Because people in Iowa act differently than people in New Mexico. If I go to Albuquerque, I know not to eat. There's something wrong with their food, and I haven't figured it out yet. I get sick every time I go to Albuquerque. Every time.
Where not?
It doesn't matter. We ate it. What did we eat? We ate at a Mexican restaurant, and my wife threw up all night.
Maybe you guys aren't used to the chili.
It's a possibility. I don't eat green chilies anymore. burns a hole in my stomach, so I just don't eat it. So it may be the food. This is the way it used to be in Mexico. If you went down to Mexico, you came back with diarrhea. It's just the way it worked. But it was mainly because we're not used to their food. It's not the same. It's what we eat. We eat at Taco Bell and think it's Mexican food. It turns out to be not even close. I'm going to a Mexican restaurant. I think I'll go to Taco Bell. I can remember the first time I ordered chili at a Mexican restaurant, and they gave me tomato soup, and I'm thinking, no. I ordered chili, and it looks like it's tomato soup. It was tomato soup. I guess that's what chili is. People with expertise on a topic have a well-developed schema about their topic. People create scripts that represent schemas about events, and we will do this. We will try to. And one of the things that we will do is we will try to create schemas if we go to a new place. Individuals who have moved a lot, and I've moved 17 times in 35 years, you try to determine where you are. My wife is a little bit different. My wife, when I go to a place, a lot of times I have trouble, and she never has trouble. And it's because she assumes that everything's going to be the same as it was the last place where she was. Okay. She doesn't recognize things. When we lived in Havre, Montana, it's probably the most racist place you can possibly imagine. But there are no African Americans there. There are no Hispanics there. There's only natives, and there are white guys. And the white people are really racist against Indians. They have a sign in their window that says "Canadians welcome." It's right on the Canadian border. So they want the Canadians to come down and spend their money. But there's not a sign that says Indians welcome, or Native Americans welcome, or American Indians welcome. They don't have that sign. And if you go to a store and you're native, then they'll follow you around to make sure you don't steal anything. As stupid as that sounds. Havre's right in between two reservations. It's right in between Fort Belknap and Rocky Point. So they get a lot of native clientele. I mean, they have to, because there's no other place to shop. But they're not really very nice to American Indians. When I was there, of course, every time I went to Havre, just to give people a hard time, I would wear a Fort Belknap t-shirt. I had a Fort Belknap license plate on my car. So they used to stop me all the time when I was driving down the road because of my Fort Belknap license plate, as odd as that may seem. What was I doing wrong? Well, sometimes I wasn't doing anything wrong. They just stopped me to make sure I wasn't doing anything wrong. In my little Miata with I don't know. One time they stopped me because I was driving down a road. They said, "What are you doing on that road?" Well, I live down that road. I live right around the corner, and I drive this road every day. What are you doing on that road? Then they said, "Well, you didn't stop at that stop sign." Yeah, right. I didn't stop at that stop sign. Bastard. Of course I stopped at that stop sign. When he saw I was a native, when you look in somebody's car, can you see in? Can you identify the people in the car?
You have to look real hard.
Well, yeah.
It's not always, but.
So he was identifying me because I had a
Dream catcher?
dream catcher. Exactly. Thank you. Right. You've seen my car. He saw my dream catcher, so he assumed I was a native, and I had Fort Belknap license plates. Anyway, yeah. So he stopped me just to make sure I wasn't doing something I wasn't supposed to do. As odd as that is. Anyway, so wherever you go, you develop a schema. Well, my wife's schema is always that everybody will treat her the same way as everybody has always treated her. She's female, for one thing, and people are nicer to females than they are to males, especially other males. Males are not very nice to other males. Sometimes they pick on them. They give them a hard time, and I always had a hard time in Havre. I played softball up there, in a softball league, and I'll tell you what, anyway, I had a much harder time than she did. And she didn't understand that I was having a hard time. She'd say, well, you're making all this stuff up. No, this is the way they're treating me, lady. My wife. Of course, my wife I was enlisted. And how do you treat enlisted personnel? Not very nice. How do you treat officers? Officers are always treated very nicely. As a matter of fact, the last time we stopped at, my wife came down from Iowa, and we stayed at Kirtland. And she was, we got a room at Kirtland, and she was a DV, a distinguished visitor. So she got a suite. You know, I'm a sergeant. What's the probability of me getting a suite? Nothing. And they had to meet us at the gate. They sent a colonel to meet us at the gate because my wife was a distinguished visitor. Didn't feel right to me. I mean, nobody's ever treated me that way. Only when I'm with my wife. Gender schemas are cognitive structures for processing information according to maleness and femaleness. You use gender schema reinforces social stereotypes about gender. You treat women one way, you treat men another way. This is one of the things that my wife and I were running into. I wasn't being treated very nicely in Havre. For one thing, I had Fort Belknap clothes on, and they thought they didn't know who I was. But they weren't treating me very nice, but they always treated my wife very, very well. Not everyone is gender schematic. If you go into cities, a lot of times people are what they refer to as metrosexual. The males are a little bit more feminine. The females are a little bit more masculine. And they're getting to a point where everybody's being treated the same. Now you'd think that would be okay, but a lot of people don't like it. Out here, of course, away from New York City and Chicago and Los Angeles, a little bit different, just a little bit different. Schemas can be applied rapidly and automatically when we encounter other people. Of course, this can lead to stereotypes, and this is the problem. So how do you, in Havre, Montana, they treat Indians poorly. They follow them around. But they also follow a group of white people around. And these individuals are called Hutterites. They're like Mennonites or Amish. And they steal things. But God told them they could, so it's okay. It's really kind of odd. They steal things. So if they get a group of Hutterites coming into the store, they'll follow them around to make sure they're not pocketing things. For one thing, they don't work, so they don't have hardly any money unless they sell something. So what in the world are they doing in the store? But they'll follow those guys around. They'll also follow natives around, thinking that they're about to shoplift or something. And of course, this is a stereotype. And so when I wear my Fort Belknap, well, I don't live there anymore, but if I wore my Fort Belknap shirt, my t-shirt, and I was walking through Walmart, they might potentially follow me around, thinking, geez, he must be married to a native lady or something, I don't know. Schemas can help us deal with new situations by giving us a basis for interpreting a new situation. Schemas are necessary. We need to know how to react in a certain circumstance. And so we use schemas. We create these schemas. We don't act the same all the time. In class, you act one way. When you're not in class, you act a totally different way. You're all operating by schema. Does that make sense? Or not? When you go to Walmart, you don't act the same as you do if you go to, I don't know, where the hell are you going? Where are you going? The grocery store, or I don't know, where else? Where do you want to eat? Blake's, if you go to Blake's and to get a hamburger, are you going to act the same as you are in Cracker Barrel? For one thing, you can't get around the aisles in Cracker Barrel. And If you go to Blake's, you have to stand there. Of course, it took me a while to figure out what was going on, because they were like, everybody was just standing in front of the counter. I couldn't figure out if there was a line or not. So I kept getting behind people. And some of these people were, they serve the food at the same place as you order, so I was behind the people that were waiting for their order. That's what, I got in the wrong line is what happened. But it wasn't really a line, it was kind of just a group of people, so I'm just standing behind people. So I'm standing there for like 5 minutes. And the same person was standing in front of the cash register ordering food, but they weren't really ordering food, so I was really lost. I was just completely lost. I'm okay now. I figured out the schema of Blake's. You get as close to the cash register as you can, and you wait. I was at a Blake's in, wait a minute, it gets better. I was at a Blake's in Tucumcari. There's one in Tucumcari. Yeah. It's totally different there. People line up in a straight line instead of a horizontal line. It's a vertical line. I know, it's completely different. I was lost. I've never stopped at the one in Window Rock. I have no idea what it's like. But if you go to Cracker Barrel, you go up to the lady with the menus and you say, I have 2 people, right? Isn't that the way you do it? But if you do that at Blake's, they're probably going to think that you're crazy. So there are schemas to wherever you are and whatever you're doing. Schemas are a good way to organize our thoughts and give structure to our memories by filling in the blanks when trying to remember. And of course, that's one of the reasons why we do it. If you're in a select circumstance, what's going to happen next? What is going to happen next? If you're in Chicago and you go to a restaurant, how do you line up? Where do you go? Do you just stand there and wait for somebody to talk to you? Well, if you're in Chicago, nobody's ever going to talk to you, so you'll never get anything done. It fills in the blanks, all of these schemas that we have. Schemas can aid us in paying attention by adding organization to our thoughts. And it tells us what to do next. So instead of this being the way that we're thinking, we are organizing our thoughts. Accessibility, once a schema is activated, we see more information consistent with the schema. That's what happened at Blake's. When I went to Blake's in Tucumcari, their rules were different than the Blake's in Gallup. But eventually I figured it out. My thoughts are being organized. I really wanted a Blake's burger without chilies, of course, because that burns my stomach.
Do you mean the schema reinforces itself, or we adjust to it, or both?
We usually just adjust it, depending on what the situation is. I mean, if you go to McDonald's in Germany, you go to McDonald's in the United States, and you're treated the same way every time. You stand in line, and as soon as you get up to the counter, you make your order. But if you go in Germany, the first thing you do is you stand in line to order your drink. And then you go stand in another line to order your food. Because in Germany, they serve beer. If you go in Japan, if you go in and you stand in front of the counter, and somebody comes up and they take your order. Somebody will come up and take your order. And then you go sit down, and they will bring it to you. That's in Japan. Okay. So we have to adjust. McDonald's in the United States is one way, McDonald's in Germany is another way, McDonald's in Japan is another way. So we know to go in and stand in front of the counter. That's the schema. But it all depends on where you are as to how they're going to treat you and what's going to happen next. The other thing is Germans don't like to stand in line. They hate it. So they will all stand up against the counter and wait. So instead of standing in a vertical line like they do in England, have you ever been to England?
No.
The Brits? Yeah, everybody queues up. That's what they refer to as queuing up. They like to stand in vertical lines. So everybody's standing behind somebody else. at a bus stop, instead of everybody just standing there and getting on a bus, they stand in a straight line. No, it's so weird. And it can go all the way down the sidewalk. It's just bizarre. They don't just stand there. And they don't stand beside each other. They never stand beside each other. They always stand, one person's behind the other person. That's the way they stand. It's just freaky.
I think I'm gonna like it there.
They're different. They're a lot of fun. And if they talk to you, this is a little close. If they're talking to you, so they're this far away. So here's the bizarre part: if they're standing behind you in line, then they'll stand kind of close to you. But if they start talking to you, they'll back up. Yeah, it's freaky. We process the information more quickly with schemas. We remember it better because it fits a schema. Schemas can be activated outside of conscious awareness, and usually they do. When I stop at Blake's, I know that I'm going to go in, and I know it's going to take about 10 or 15 minutes for my hamburger to be ready, so I always take in a book, because I know I'm going to have to wait. But this is beyond my conscious awareness. I'm not really thinking about these things. I know I'm going to stop at Blake's. It's going to take this much time. I used to stop at Freddy's, but they closed Freddy's. You know, it's down the. You know where Freddy? Have you ever eaten at Freddy's? Best milkshakes in the world for one meal. And of course, this is all known as accessibility. This idea that we have all this information at our fingertips because we maintain schemas. Recent experiences will increase our accessibility to the schemas that deal with these experiences. This is known as priming. So all we need to do is think about a select thing, and now we have been primed. We're ready to think more about that certain subject. Something can become primed for three reasons. Chronically accessible due to past experience. So it's always there. We're always thinking about it. It's somewhere in our brain. All we have to do is come in contact with it again, and that information is readily accessible. Accessible because it is related to a current goal. This is what I'm focusing on. Therefore, this information is readily available to me. Temporarily accessible because of our recent experience. It just happened to me. I'm thinking about Bosch's. I've been to Bosch's dozens of times, but I was just there on Sunday, on Super Bowl Sunday. I know, I was really shocked that they had potato chips, because the last time I went into Bosch's, they didn't have any potato chips. All they had were Cheetos. That was a little weird.
It sounds like what they do with commercials. They prime you.
Exactly. That's exactly what commercials are all about.
It almost sounds like what you were talking about earlier, being subliminal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why they try to play music. And it's specific music, and it's specific words to that music, because that'll play over in your head. Here lately, I've been waking up every morning with a song in my head. It's driving me nuts, because sometimes it's old songs, sometimes it's commercials. This is crazy. I'm waking up with songs in my mind, and then I can't get rid of it. I'll tell you what the song was today, but I don't want to think about it. I dreamed that my cat got hit by a car, and it cut off the whole back end of her. So she's only a front end, okay? And so I go up to my cat and I pet her, and she starts purring. Well, if you know anything about my cat, she doesn't purr. If you try to pet her, she bites you. So why the hell do I have that cat? Ask me that question. Don't ask me that question. So I'm petting the cat, and she starts talking to me. This is the dream I had just before I woke up. She starts talking to me. She says, "You know I have kittens." I said, "Really?" She says, "Yeah, here they come." And she has 5 little kittens. She's a female. I mean, obviously, she's a female. And so we started talking back and forth about these 5 kittens. She says, "You know, I really don't like you." She doesn't. She doesn't like me at all. Anyway.
You know, you brought up two things, the priming and then that automatic thought.
Yeah.
And then you talk about your dream, and that was actually where my mind went. I was thinking, this is how we get some of our dreams. By the last thing we were watching, or the last thing we were thinking about before we went to bed.
Exactly. I wasn't thinking about running over my cat with a car. Something else that happened in my dream was that I found rat manure. You know, I didn't find the rats. I didn't see the rats, but I found the manure, and that was a shock. Rats. They're bigger than mice. I don't know if you've seen.
Where was this at?
Mice have little tiny turds.
Here?
No. It was a dream.
Oh, a dream, okay.
It was a dream. And not only that, I was in my house in Oklahoma. I wasn't in my house here. I wasn't in my house in Iowa. I wasn't in my house in, I haven't been in that house since 1994. And here I was in a house in Oklahoma City, or Choctaw actually. I lived in Choctaw. I lived across the street from Oklahoma City. Here's the problem with living in Choctaw instead of Oklahoma City. If you live in Choctaw, you get your mail a day later than if you live in Oklahoma City. And it's they're right across the street. It's on the same street, but they always get their mail earlier than we do. So I'm watching my neighbor's mailbox, and he gets his Sports Illustrated on Wednesday, and I get mine on Thursday. What's that all about? That's not right. They send out the Sports Illustrateds on the same day, and I get mine a day later than he does. That's in Oklahoma City. Anyway. This is too much fun. Self-fulfilling prophecy is the case whereby people have an expectation about what another person is like, which influences how they act toward that person, which causes that person to behave consistently with people's original expectations, making the expectations come true. So this is the way I treat you, and I will treat you this way for the rest of the time that I know you, because I have it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You guys act this way, and this is the way I think you're going to act, so I treat you like I think you're going to act, and then all of a sudden you start acting the way that I treat you. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say that I don't like African Americans, and I'm teaching grade school, and I have 5 African American kids in my class. And I have this idea that African American kids are lazy and they don't want to learn anything. So as a teacher, even though I try to teach everybody the same, I still treat those 5 African American kids as if they're lazy and they're not going to know anything. So when I grade them, my assumption is they're lazy and they don't want to learn anything. So when I grade them a little tougher than I grade the other kids in the class. Grade them just a little bit tougher. And they can see this, and they'll raise their hand, I won't call on them. So pretty soon they start acting negatively toward me. And of course that fits my idea of who they are. So now all of a sudden they are acting the way that I think they're going to act. And that's known as a self-fulfilling prophecy. I've already got a stereotype about who they are and what they're going to say to me. And since I have that, then now I've got a whole... Now they're actually doing what I think they would have done. Does all that make sense? We see this all the time. Even teachers who claim that they're not racist, and this is one of the things about racism anyway. That idiot that's the governor of Virginia that had a blackface, picture of a person in blackface and a person in the KKK. On his what was he in? Medical school yearbook. On his page, he's got one individual in blackface and another person in a KKK outfit. Now the problem is, consciously, with my conscious thought, I may think that I'm not racist. But with my automatic thinking, I am. And that's the problem. Because I assume that they're going to act this way. Now, if I think about it, if I use my conscious thinking, then I say, no, I treat everybody the same. But of course, due to the fact that I have this stereotype about this select group of individuals, I'm going to treat them negatively. As sad as that is. And this is the way it works, and this is the way racism works. The automatic thinking is, unfortunately, you can't get away from that. And there are a lot of people that have negative ideas about people, if that's the way you were raised. Sorry, it's just the way it works. Luckily, I wasn't raised that way. So, when I was in the military, when I was in college, I treated everybody the same. When I was in college, I didn't join a fraternity because the fraternities were segregated. And I didn't think that was fair. So I was independent. And I lived with all the independents. And of course, all the black kids were all independents because they couldn't join fraternities in college. So I was kind of lucky that my parents didn't teach me negative ideas about people. But where do you get negative ideas? Who gives those to you?
Media.
It's possible. It's possible. Especially if you're watching the wrong news program.
Fake news. You're watching fake news?
Fake news, exactly. You're watching fake news. In the old days, there was CBS, NBC, and ABC. That was it. There was no CNN, there was no Fox News. They didn't exist. So that's the only news that you've got. So if you watched CBS News, it was more liberal than NBC, and ABC was the least liberal of all three networks. But those were the only three networks there were.
Folks.
Sorry?
Your folks.
Potentially, yeah. Whatever your folks tell you.
Your teachers.
And your teachers. I was shocked when I was, my parents treated everybody, they talked about everybody as if everybody was the same. They didn't talk about black people, they didn't talk about white people. They talked about relatives and non-relatives. A lot of people think that their relatives are the best people in the world. My parents thought their relatives were the worst people. So I saw everybody else as better than us, because Aunt this and Uncle that were jerks and that kind of thing. So I figured everybody else must be better than me. But they didn't teach us what black people were. They had no clue, none whatsoever. We didn't talk about it. My favorite baseball player was Willie Mays, and he's black. And I didn't realize he was black until somebody told me he was. It was my neighbor that explained race to me, and I didn't understand it before. Anyway, I was lucky. I was lucky that I was raised the way that I was. Potentially, you've got instructors that have stereotypes about American Indians. It's possible. I think I've come in contact with these people and had conversations with them. It was really kind of interesting. Why are you here if you don't like American Indians? Why would you teach here? Why are you still here? Why don't you go away? Why don't you go someplace where you feel better about the people that you're teaching? Teachers will do this with their students, maintaining the stereotype that minorities will struggle to the point of failure, girls will be good, and boys will misbehave. And of course, we see this all the time. Even teachers that are told, look, don't treat your boys the same way that you treat your girls. They still do it. It's just automatic. It's automatic thinking. Girls are good and boys are bad. Wait a minute. Girls are sugar and spice and everything nice, that's right, and boys are snips and snails and puppy dog tails. That's what boys are. So boys are always bad and girls are always good. And of course, teachers will do this. They'll treat their boys and girls differently. They'll also treat their minorities differently. It's difficult to find somebody who has never, doesn't have these stereotypes, doesn't maintain these stereotypes. And of course, one of the problems with Charlottesville was the fact that the president didn't condemn the neo-Nazi white Aryan group. That was kind of a negative thing. And that's what everybody wanted to do. That's not what happened.
What about like Navajos who have these schemas against other Navajos?
I don't know. I've only been here for 3 years. I'm still gaining information from conversations that I have. Of course, I was up north for 10 years. The fact that you guys don't acknowledge other tribes just drives me nuts. That just drives me crazy because up there, everything's intertribal, everybody's intermarried, everybody seems to be happy. Look at you to see your face. You should see the look on his face. His brow got all like, oh my God, they do that? Yeah, they do that. It's a little bit different. I had a friend who claimed to be the only full-blooded Nakota, a Assiniboine. He was the only full-blooded Nakota on the reservation. He said it. That was funny.
I didn't like living near other Indians when I was in Phoenix, in apartment complexes. The only, the racial groups I liked living next to were Hispanics. Because I knew they were going to go to bed early, because they were going to get up early to go to work, and it was going to be quiet. And when I knew there was Navajos,
they're going to make noise all night long.
Yeah, so I didn't like living near Navajos, other Indians.
Hey. Someone be butchering a sheep in the back.
That's too funny. And you didn't want to live near white people because white people, they hate everybody except themselves.
I think I was a little uncomfortable around some black people because our social cues are different.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah, so it had nothing to do with I didn't like them as a group. Just like
You were around those guys in the military. You probably had African Americans who were subordinate to you.
But I didn't like living around white people because I thought they would always be judgy.
Exactly.
And I didn't want to live around natives because I thought they would be loud. And so when I would move into a new complex, we would go, before we would sign, I would have to park in front of the...
Oh my God, and look at people, look to see
and just see who was living there.
Jeez.
But did you go back on Saturday nights, Friday and Saturday nights?
Well, you ran into other tribes when you were there.
I like to hang out with other natives when at my own leisure.
Sure.
But
I mean,
not
Phoenix
24/7.
is, the Pima are just south of there.
I don't even like living near other Navajos over here in too close.
Too close. What about the Hopi?
Get along with them.
How about the Apache?
Because they're about 30 minutes away.
How about the Apache?
They're far enough away from here. I don't mind. I just don't want to live next door to. I don't even like living next door to other Navajos.
Oh, jeez. Okay. You know about my research. I did my research off the reservation. So I was dealing with natives who didn't want to live on the reservation. Is actually what I was dealing with. Really kind of interesting. Okay, anyway. So we're talking about self-fulfilling prophecies. 1968, Rosenthal and Jacobson assigned special status to random students and told their teachers about the special status. At the end of the year, the special students had excelled because they created a warmer emotional climate for those students, giving them more personal attention, encouragement, and support just because they were told that they were special. They gave them more challenging material, they gave them more and better feedback, they gave them more opportunities to respond in class and gave them longer to respond. This despite the fact that these individuals were just chosen randomly. They weren't special in any way. When I was in grade school, they gave us IQ tests, and 18 of us scored genius. So we were treated differently. It was really kind of interesting because most of the kids that scored genius were teachers' children. 5 of them were. They were teachers' children. But they didn't tell us that we were special. So but they treated us differently. We never got spanked. It's not that we didn't do anything bad, it's just that when we did do something bad, I never did anything bad. But the other kids, when they did something bad, they never got spanked. It was really kind of interesting. The teachers treated us differently. And we knew that. We felt that. And I thought that they were treating me differently because I was a friend of one of the kids that they were treating differently. I didn't think it was because I was anything special. I made all C's and B's while I was in school. I never made an A. I never got an A in anything. I don't know what my problem was. Heuristics. So the self-fulfilling prophecy, all you have to do is have positive attitudes about people, and potentially you'll treat everybody this way. This is my assumption about my students. You're all my special students. How's it? I assume everybody's going to do everything that I ask you to do, and you're going to do it whenever you feel like it, and that's okay. My point is, I'm not going to teach you time management. I was having this argument with Marius the other day. Some of your professors will force you to do things in a select amount of time. You have to do everything on time. But I don't like that. I don't like to do that. I just want you to learn the information. That's all I care about. I don't care about whether you do everything at the last minute. I'm a procrastinator. I haven't graded in 2 weeks. I know, I'll get around to it. 2 weeks ago, my wife was here, so I spent the whole weekend with her instead of grading. Well, that's criminal, isn't it? Being with your wife. And last weekend, I just couldn't. I couldn't get the car started. So I didn't start grading until like 10 o'clock on Sunday night, and I only got one class half done. So I'll get her done. I'll get her done. Don't worry about it. I'm a procrastinator, and I understand if you're procrastinators, but I don't understand if you never get anything done. Okay, I want you to accumulate this information. This is good stuff. We're talking about social psychology. We're talking about how people act in society. And this can teach you why your neighbor acts the way that your neighbor acts. It's probably correct. Write that down. Okay, so we have stereotypes that we maintain. We have all of these schemas that we utilize. We'll take these schemas and we'll put them into what we refer to as heuristics, or rules of thumb strategies that enable an individual to make quick, efficient judgments about a situation. I have to drive between here and Iowa. I will do that in March. I'll drive home. While I'm driving down the interstate, sometimes it's really crowded. 40 between here and Albuquerque is extremely crowded. I mean, it's really crowded. Lots and lots of semis running between Phoenix and Albuquerque. So there's tons and tons of semis. You've got people pulling out from behind semis. You're going 80 miles an hour. They want to go 82 miles an hour. Anyway, I have to try to figure out what people are going to do. And I figure that out by using rules of thumb. I try to put myself in that guy's mindset. I drive a, what do I drive? Mazda CX-5. I'm parked right beside it. That red one up there. Okay. It's not a challenging vehicle, okay? But some people, when they see a challenging vehicle, they want to get in front of it. You know, those kinds of things. Mindsets. What's going on in this person's mind? I'm trying to keep that guy from getting angry and running me off the road or doing something stupid. I don't want him to do anything stupid. I don't want him to drive too fast. I don't want him to slow down in front of me. I want traffic to flow, because I have to go 1,500 miles. And I don't want to get in front of some jackass just pissed off because his wife punched him in the nose last night, and now he's angry at the world. So I use rules of thumb when I'm driving. I use heuristics.
Is that the same as like empathy?
Well, it can be empathic. Sometimes I get pissed, and sometimes I go faster than I want to. Here's a problem on the road, especially on the big road, driving in people's blind spots. They can't see you. They don't know that you're there. I have people that will park in my blinds. People from Texas do this. I used to live in Texas. I lived in Texas 4 times, okay? I know Texans. They'll pass you on the inside, which is okay. I don't mind people passing me on the inside. It's when they camp in my blind spot. Your blind spot's right here. And if I pull out, I'm maybe this far away from his bumper, but I can't see him. So if I get in somebody's blind spot, I'll accelerate so I get around them as fast as I can, so they don't pull out. Now, of course, they've got that thing that warns you that people are in your blind spot. But I don't have one of those in my car. And I can assume that everybody acknowledges that or sees that. Anyway, so I have rules of thumb about driving. How am I doing on time? Okay. We use heuristics to promote our own survival. Humans as species have developed heuristics to ensure the survival takes place. Being right isn't nearly as important as being alive. So we use these heuristics, these rules of thumb, to survive. Strange picture. One of the most common heuristics that we use is detecting typicalness when making a decision. This is known as representativeness heuristics. Representative heuristics are often applied even against overwhelming odds because we trust our instincts so frequently. And this potentially is what's happening with police. Who are the bad guys? How do we know who's the bad guy? A lot of times policemen are telling themselves that the bad guys are African American males. So if they see an African American male, sometimes they will shoot them. What happened? Oh, there was a mall shooting in Tennessee, someplace in Tennessee.
The veteran got shot in the back.
Yeah, but he was a black veteran. Yeah, he was a black guy. And he was running away from, there was a mall shooting, and he was running away, and the cops saw him and shot him in the back, and they decided not to prosecute the policeman that did that. Now, why would he shoot the guy? For one thing, he doesn't have a weapon. So what did he do wrong? Why did he get shot and killed? It was a kill shot. Why did he shoot the black guy?
Probably believe he was dangerous.
Sorry?
Probably believe like he was dangerous or something.
Black? Are black people dangerous?
They are believed to be.
They are believed to be, especially by the police. This seems to be a real serious problem that we have. And that's one of the reasons why they started Black Lives Matter. They're trying to plant this idea in the consciousness of police, of the consciousness of the people in the United States, that they're people too. For the longest time, the stereotype is that they are the ones, they're the bad guys, the black males. And why not black females? Why don't black females get shot? Who are the most likely to shoot somebody? Black males, black females, white males, white females, Hispanic males, Hispanic females?
Talking per capita or just
This guy's got the statistics. Yeah, tell me, who shoots people more than anybody else?
White people.
Yeah, jeez.
So if you're going by overall numbers.
Seems, I mean, that one guy just popped off, what, 59 people in Las Vegas? And he was old. Usually it's a young guy. Then about the week before that was the shooting in just north of San Antonio in the church, where the guy went into the church and just blew people away. Another white guy. When was the last time we saw a mass shooter who was black? Can we even think of one? What race was the kid in?
That Somali guy, but he was doing one at a time in Washington D.C. The D.C. sniper.
The DC sniper, right.
But that was one at a time.
Yeah, he was a black guy, but that was what, 2000, 99, 2000?
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, 2001. That was a long time. DC sniper. Two black people.
This Somalian gentleman, and I think it was his stepson.
No, he wasn't Somali. He was an army veteran.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. They say he was a
Yeah.
marksman. They
Yeah.
made it sound like he was a good shooter, but
I know.
marksman, like,
Yeah,
he barely qualified.
Well, he changed his name. Yeah, he changed his name. Gave himself another name. Wait a minute. Let me see how much time I've got. So if white people are the most dangerous, shouldn't they be the ones being shot in the back?
Yeah.
But it's not happening, is it? Doesn't seem to be happening. It's happening to black males. Why are black males so dangerous? Even ones that are unarmed are dangerous. There is no answer to that. Representative heuristics is what they're using. Typicalness. They watch too much television. Bad guys, they've tried to stop doing this, making the bad guy black. I don't know if anybody watches Cops anymore, but if you watched it in the beginning, when it first came out, the bad guy was always black. Either black or a shaved-headed Hispanic gentleman were the bad guys. It seems like if people shave their heads, they're bad. I haven't figured that one out yet, but it has something to do with shaved heads. The fact they have no hair on their heads. Okay, this is, what they're doing is using representativeness heuristics. Kind of an interesting picture. This lady's a rollerblader, so as you can see, her tan is different. The computer programmer has no tan whatsoever. The tennis player, whatever clothes she wears when she plays tennis, of course. That's not covered. Okay, representativeness heuristics. Yes. 70 engineers and 30 lawyers were interviewed, and here is a random sample from the interview. He is a twice divorced man who spends most of his free time at a country club. He regrets following in his father's footsteps. He wishes he hadn't spent so much time in college on academics and instead spent more time socializing so he wouldn't be so quick to argue with people. Is he a lawyer or is he an engineer? They talked to 70 engineers and 30 lawyers. Is this guy an engineer or a lawyer? He's been divorced twice, spent too much time on academics. He wishes that he had a better time in college.
Lawyer? I'll say lawyer.
80% said he was a lawyer. What do we know? Could he be either an engineer or a lawyer?
Could be.
Yeah. But of course, representativeness heuristics tells us that he's probably a lawyer.
I think it was, we were primed.
Did I prime you?
With the arguing. The word arguing.
Linda is 31 years old, single, outspoken, and very bright. She majored in philosophy. As a student, she was deeply concerned with issues of discrimination and social justice, and also participated in anti-nuclear demonstrations. Is Linda a bank teller or a college professor? She's 31 years old. She's single. She's outspoken. She's very bright. She's a philosophy major. She's concerned about things. She has been in demonstrations. Is she a bank teller or a college professor?
I don't think there's too many bank tellers that major in philosophy.
What do they major in if you're a bank teller? I don't know.
Can you prime us with philosophy?
Oh, nobody made a decision. You think she's a college professor or a bank teller? Professor? Okay.
Survey says.
The survey said. Timorous Thomasina. Thomasina is very shy and withdrawn, invariably helpful, but with little interest in people or in the world of reality. A meek and a tidy soul, she has a need for order and structure and a passion for detail. Is she a librarian or is she a doctor? A medical doctor. An MD, not a DO. You think she's a librarian?
Yeah.
She's meek and tidy.
Librarian.
She's doctor.
She's helpful.
I don't know.
Doctors are not helpful, they're
Well, she has
snobby.
little interest in people. When they
Generally
generally not
reality.
helpful, so.
Doctors are not meek either.
Okay, so are we betting on librarian? That doesn't matter.
What is that?
There are no answers. There are no answers to this.
Oh.
I'm using
You get all
representativeness
A's,
heuristic.
guys.
You always right.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
was all emotionally invested in these.
I know.
I was thinking about the librarian at the college. It's like,
Who, Herman?
are they helpful? Are they meek?
Dr. Peterson.
Herman won't control his damn dog, I swear. That dog's all over the place out there.
Clay, he's cute though.
Oh, Clay?
That's his name. The blood or the hound dog.
The hound dog, pain in the ass. But that's my personal opinion. I wish Herman would control him. Why doesn't he control him? Does anybody know?
Because he's a meat librarian.
Can't catch him. No, he claims he's Cherokee, and Cherokees don't lock their dogs up. That's what. Oh, come on.
He told me that,
Shit.
a couple of years ago, he told me that he was Park Comanche.
He's what?
Park Comanche.
Oh, is that right? He's a
Yeah.
Comanche now. Okay, that's kind of exciting. He told me he was Cherokee. He didn't say anything about the Comanche part. Okay, that's interesting. Well, you know, the Comanche and the Cherokee are both in Oklahoma, so that's a possibility. Except the Cherokee are way over on the east and the Comanche are way over on the west. Anyway, that's not important, I guess. See you guys next time. Thanks for being here. Sorry about the weather. I didn't have anything to do with it.
So we don't sign